Welcome to Stories That Hurt. Here, we share stories that touch the heart, stories that invite you to pause, feel, and reflect. Emily Harper was born in a quiet town in Iowa, where everyone knew each other and news traveled faster through gossip than newspapers. She had always felt that her life could not be confined to narrow streets and small cafes that closed at 8 in the evening. Even in school, she dreamed of New York, a city where one could feel the true rhythm of life, where all her ambitions might have a chance to come to fruition. When she finally arrived in the metropolis, a world of towering skyscrapers, endless streets, and a noise that never ceased unfolded before her. She came with 2 suitcases, empty pockets, but a heart brimming with ambition. The first months were the hardest. She worked in low-paying positions at a bank, often staying late to finish reports and accounts that seemed endless. During the day, she performed routine work. At night, she studied finance, read analytical reports, biographies of great investors, and books on the psychology of success. Her colleagues were initially skeptical. A young girl from Iowa? What could she possibly know about complex financial instruments and risks assessed daily by seasoned professionals? But Emily paid no attention to the doubts around her. She viewed every new challenge as an opportunity, even if it meant sleepless nights and constant stress. After a few years, her persistence bore fruit. At first, she was noticed as a precise analyst capable of spotting risks others ignored. Then she received a managerial position in the investment department. Her strategic thinking and intuition allowed her to see opportunities where others saw only obstacles. She risked investing in startups, real estate, and tech projects that seemed too dangerous. And to many people's surprise, her portfolio began generating steady profits. She earned her first $1 million after an extremely complex deal that took months to complete. It was not just a financial victory, it was a symbol that her hard work and self-belief were beginning to pay off. She celebrated at her favorite Manhattan restaurant, surrounded by friends and colleagues who had stayed by her side and dreamed of creating her own fund to help young entrepreneurs avoid mistakes she had once made. But life had its surprises. The next morning, a technical failure in the banking system, combined with a stock market crash, wiped out all her investments. The millions she had earned over years vanished in an instant. Worse still, the bank where she worked came under investigation for suspected fraud, and all her assets were frozen. Emily stood in front of the mirror in her small Upper East Side apartment and could barely recognize herself. She had lost not just money, she had lost the trust of colleagues, the support of friends, and confidence in herself. Her family, who had always believed in her, now doubted the correctness of her choices. The sense of defeat was unbearable, but instead of giving up, she took a step back. She realized that her true capital was not money, but knowledge, experience, and inner strength. She started small. She consulted startups, helping young entrepreneurs avoid mistakes. Every success, even small, restored her faith. Her story quickly spread in financial circles, inspiring those afraid to take risks after initial failures. Over time, Emily established her fund. It was not just a business, it was a community where anyone could find support and guidance. She didn't just make money. She created an environment that inspired and helped. Her past mistakes became lessons she passed on to others. And this made her fund unique. Emily Harper's story is one of resilience, of believing in oneself even when it feels like the whole world is against you. She learned that true success is not just financial metrics, but how you rise after a fall, help others, and maintain faith in your own abilities. Her life became proof that even in the greatest crises, one can find new opportunities and emerge stronger than ever. After the bank froze all her assets and former friends and colleagues distanced themselves, Emily felt as if she were standing on the edge of a cliff. Every morning she woke with the thought, what if I never rise again? At night, nightmares haunted her, showing her millions turning to paper dust and her name splashed across newspapers with headlines about a financial scandal. She knew rebuilding her reputation would be harder than earning money in the first place. Her fears were many: fear of financial failure, fear of family judgment, fear of competitors seizing her weakness. Sometimes she caught herself thinking of giving up, locking her apartment, and returning to quiet life in Iowa. But something within her held her back, a sense that she had not yet lived up to her true potential. The first steps were fragile. Consulting startups proved harder than expected. In some projects, her advice was seen as interference, in others as distrust toward the founders. Competitors from large funds did not sleep. They perceived her comeback as weakness and tried to discredit her by spreading rumors, inviting journalists to investigations, highlighting her past financial failures. Journalists who had once admired her rise now asked provocative questions. Are you really capable of restoring the fund? Why are you still in the financial world? What will you tell investors about the million lost overnight? These words cut deeper than any criticism from colleagues. Emily felt every action she took was being judged through the lens of past failure. To withstand this pressure, she began keeping a journal. She wrote down her fears, doubts, and even small victories. She analyzed why some startups succeeded more than others, where her strategies failed, and what could be improved. This self-reflection became her therapy. Each page she wrote was a small step toward regaining control of her life. Gradually, her reputation began to recover. One day, a young founder of a tech startup, who had already experienced several failed investments, approached her. He listened to her advice and then exclaimed, "You see things nobody else notices. I'm ready to take the risk with you." This was a turning point. Emily realized that her experience and knowledge were valuable, just as her money once was. Conflicts with competitors persisted. One day, a large fund tried to poach one of her key consultants, offering an incredible salary and privileged conditions. Emily felt hurt and afraid of losing her team, but instead of confronting them openly, she gathered the team and spoke honestly about the fund's values. Her sincerity and belief in a shared goal strengthened trust. None of them left. Another challenge was the bank where she had previously worked. During hearings with financial regulators, some employees tried to shift part of the responsibility for losses onto Emily. She felt the pressure mounting but prepared for each session with lawyers, documents, and facts. Her calm, reasoned approach surprised many and proved her professionalism even in a crisis. Her personal life also faced trials. Self-doubt lingered. Each time she looked at the windows of New York skyscrapers, she recalled her failures. What if this happens again? She asked herself. Yet she also felt a newfound strength, the ability to rise after a fall, analyze mistakes, and move forward. After several years of persistent work, her fund began producing significant results. She invested not only money but also time, knowledge, and energy. Under her guidance, startups grew into successful companies, creating jobs and influencing the economy. Emily's reputation recovered, stronger than ever. She was valued not for wealth but for competence, honesty, and the ability to support others in the toughest situations. Emily realized that fears and doubts are not weaknesses but signals for learning. They made her cautious, strategic, and appreciative of her team. Every challenge from competitors, journalists, or the bank became a lesson and a reminder that true success is measured not by money, but by resilience and the impact on others. Her story became legendary in the financial world, an example of falling but not breaking, of restoring reputation, maintaining a team, and creating a community where success is measured not only by money but by human potential. Emily Harper proved that even after the greatest collapse, one can rise stronger and wiser, and that the true value of life lies in supporting others when they need it most. A few years after the crisis, Emily's fund began to gain momentum. Her team consisted of a few former colleagues she had earned the trust of, and young consultants who saw her as a role model. The first startup they supported was a small company developing an app to optimize grocery deliveries. The founders were ambitious, but often conflicted with each other. At the first meeting, Emily felt the tension in the room. She looked at the two partners and realized that their passion could turn into destructive energy. "We will invest, but we will also guide you every step of the way," she said calmly, feeling the tension ease slightly. They argued about marketing strategy. One wanted aggressive advertising, the other a more economical approach. Emily suggested a compromise. Launch a pilot, campaign to a limited audience, and analyze results before scaling. A few months later, the app became popular in the city, and the fund earned its first significant profit from a successful investment. For Emily, it was not just financial success, it was a victory over conflicts and doubts, seeing how strategy and patience helped the startup survive and grow. The next challenge was a tech, STARTUP, developing innovative batteries for electric vehicles. The founder was a talented engineer but had no business experience. He often doubted Emily and her team's advice, sometimes openly criticizing their decisions in meetings. "We can do this better ourselves," he shouted in the early stages of negotiations. Emily knew the stakes were high, the technology was promising, but without proper management, the company could fail. She decided to apply her experience in psychological mentorship. She held daily short sessions to discuss priorities, risks, and potential solutions. She listened, explained, and taught the founder how to assess finances and risks without losing his innovative approach. A year later, the company received its first recognition at a national innovation competition. Investors began paying attention to their product, and Emily received confirmation that even the most complex interpersonal conflicts could be transformed into constructive collaboration. This case became a symbol of patience and mentorship for the fund team. Another case was even more dramatic. A startup developing an online education platform faced legal challenges. A competitor accused them of copying technology. The founders were in despair, the team was falling apart, and the reputation was at risk. Emily personally took charge of negotiations with lawyers, journalists, and partners. She organized a press conference, honestly explaining the situation while emphasizing her team's innovation. It was a turning point. The publication not only protected the startup from unfounded accusations, but also attracted attention from new investors. When the situation stabilized, Emily held separate training sessions for the founders on crisis management, teaching them to communicate with the public and not fear conflicts. The startup quickly recovered and won an award for the Best Educational Platform of the Year. Throughout these trials, Emily struggled with her internal fears, fear of failure, concern for the team, and anxiety about losing investors' trust again. She sometimes felt her heart tighten with each negative email from a competitor or magazine article. But her daily journal entries helped her process emotions and make rational decisions. Over time, Emily's fund became known as a place where startups not only received funding, but also mentorship, support, and education. She personally oversaw all key projects, teaching founders financial discipline, negotiation skills, and team management psychology. Her methods worked. 5 years after the crisis, the fund became one of the most successful in the country. Startups from her portfolio created thousands of jobs and received international recognition. Emily realized that her story was not just about money. She became a symbol of resilience and unwavering self-belief even when the world doubted her. She learned to treat fears and doubts as signals for growth, conflicts with competitors as strategy lessons, and crises as opportunities. Her life proved that true success is measured not by financial indicators, but by how you support others and transform their lives for the better. Emily, Harper's story became a legend in the financial world. From a girl from Iowa who arrived with 2 suitcases and no money, to a mentor and leader who created a community where success is measured not only by money but by human potential, wisdom, and belief in the future. She proved that even after the greatest fall, one can rise stronger, wiser, and capable of inspiring others. A few years after the fund's recovery, Emily felt that the hardest trials were yet to come. Startups began to grow, and with them emerged a new problem. Some young entrepreneurs who had previously respected her began acting arrogantly. They thought it was time to do everything their way. Believing the advice of an experienced mentor was outdated, the first incident occurred at a weekly fund meeting. Emily stood by the whiteboard, explaining a strategy to enter a new market. When one of the founders, a young programmer named Mark, interrupted, "We're doing it our way. Your old methods don't work anymore. We know better." His voice was firm, but it carried disdain. Other participants laughed, and some even nodded in agreement. Emily felt her chest tighten. She paused for a moment, feeling her self-perception waver. But instead of leaving the room, she calmly responded, "Mark, I appreciate your confidence, but experience is not old methods. It's knowledge that allows you to anticipate problems you haven't seen yet. Today, I'll explain how to turn your risk into an opportunity." The conflict escalated. Other young entrepreneurs began openly arguing about who was right. One suggested completely ignoring the fund's advice and acting autonomously, while another accused Emily of excessive control. The meeting ended in a heated debate, and Emily went home feeling an inner defeat. She realized managing the team had become far more complex than simply giving financial advice. The following weeks were tense. Some founders began sabotaging meetings, missing deadlines, and even trying to convince others to ignore her recommendations. Emily felt the pain not from money or reputation, but from losing the trust and respect of those she was helping. Her journal filled with doubts. Am I really too old-fashioned? Is my leadership more hindering than helping? However, alongside the crisis came a new strength. Emily applied her psychological expertise. She organized a series of individual meetings, listening to each founder, identifying their fears and ambitions, and helping them find compromises. She showed that disdain often stems from fear of the unknown and a desire to assert oneself. Gradually, some entrepreneurs began trusting her again, seeing that her goal was not control but support. At the same time, a competing fund tried to exploit internal disputes against Emily. They spread rumors of her age, suggesting she couldn't run modern business, and invited young founders to join them. This intensified the situation, as some protégés began doubting who the more effective mentor was. Emily felt intense pain and frustration, but instead of succumbing to emotions, she acted strategically. She organized an open session where everyone could speak, discuss grievances, and find solutions. She didn't impose her opinion. She taught young entrepreneurs to argue their positions while listening to others. Conflicts turned into constructive dialogue, and the fund emerged stronger. This stage of learning was especially painful for Emily. She often stayed late at night, reviewing financial reports and meeting notes, realizing that success depended not only on strategies but on team psychology. She understood that leadership is not just market knowledge, but the ability to maintain human relationships, even when they seem broken. After a few months, the situation stabilized. Startups that initially ignored her advice began showing results. The grocery delivery app dominated the market. The tech startup exhibited internationally and won awards. And the education platform overcame legal challenges and doubled in size. Young entrepreneurs began to respect Emily not out of authority, but for her patience, ability to listen, and support in the toughest situations. Emily realized one important thing. Even if someone disrespects you or questions your methods, it is no reason to abandon your principles. Conflicts and pain are part of the path, and true authority comes through wisdom, patience, and the ability to remain human even when others test you. At the final weekly fund meetings, young entrepreneurs openly thanked her for support and mentorship. Emily stood before the team, seeing determined and enthusiastic faces. She knew the journey to success was not over. But now she had a team that believed in themselves and her. Ready to face any crisis together. Emily Harper's story concluded not with a financial triumph, but with a moral victory. She created a community where young entrepreneurs not only receive financial support, but also learn to resolve disputes, trust each other, and turn conflicts into growth opportunities. She showed that even after the greatest pain, disdain, and doubt, one can rise stronger, wiser, and able to inspire others. One morning, New York woke to breaking news. The stock market fell 12% in a few hours, and a media corporation published a sensational article about Emily's fund. The article claimed that several startups in the fund's portfolio allegedly violated the law, and that Emily supposedly interfered so much in entrepreneurs' work that it restricted their freedom and creativity. The fund team gathered in the conference room, tension palpable in every glance. Young entrepreneurs began suspecting their mentor again, whispering among themselves, and Mark, who had previously openly disrespected her, said, "Maybe we should act on our own. If we get into a scandal again, she let us down." Emily felt the familiar pain and fear. The situation reminded her of the first collapse, when she lost $1 million and the trust of those around her. But now she was not alone. Her team had gone through all trials together. She took a deep breath and began acting. She first divided tasks among the team. Some worked on the official media response. Others analyzed the startup's financial performance, and others handled investor communication. Emily led each meeting and checked all documents personally. She knew her resolve now determined not only the fund's reputation, but the future of all. Startups thought the first hours were the hardest. Mark did not hide his skepticism and continued whispering during meetings, but Emily addressed him directly. "Mark, your doubts are understandable. But if we split now, everyone loses the chance. Are you ready to act together?" After a pause, he nodded, and the tension in the room eased slightly. Emily personally held a press conference, honestly explaining the situation. The startups had not violated the law. The fund did not restrict entrepreneurs' freedom, but merely provided support and mentorship. She presented data, facts, charts, and real success stories. Her calm, reasoned, and confident approach led journalists to revise the article and correct inaccuracies. Simultaneously, the fund held a crisis meeting with the startups. Emily showed the young entrepreneurs that even amid external chaos, it was possible to remain strategic, support each other, and make quick decisions. She assigned specific roles: who was responsible for communication, finance, and legal issues. The team functioned as a single mechanism. By the end of the day, the market began stabilizing, and most of the fund's startups remained afloat. The media corporation corrected errors in the publication, and investors appreciated the transparency and speed of the team's response. Young entrepreneurs who had once disrespected Emily now looked at her with respect and even gratitude. They understood that mentorship was not control but support during the toughest moments. In the evening, after all crisis decisions and long hours of negotiations, Emily remained alone in the conference room. She looked at the New York skyline, feeling exhaustion, pain, and yet incredible satisfaction. She had weathered another major storm and emerged, victorious with her team. That day became a symbol of her life principle. Even when the world seems against you, when you are disrespected and doubted, you can maintain control, strength, and support those beside you. She realized that true success is not the absence of crises, but the ability to go through them while remaining human. A mentor and a leader. A few weeks later, Emily's fund officially received recognition for Best Crisis Management Strategy of the Year, and the young entrepreneurs who had once disrespected her became the fund's strongest advocates. They realized that pain, conflict, and doubt are only tests, and true strength is revealed in overcoming them together. Emily Harper, who once arrived in New York with 2 suitcases and no money, completed her journey not only financially successful, but also as a wise, strong, and inspiring mentor who taught others to believe in themselves, overcome fears, and turn any conflict into a growth opportunity. Her story became an example that the true value of life lies in the ability to rise after a fall, support others, and remain human even in the harshest trials.